But it does point to the fact that one of the big challenges is always about how do you go from these ideas into execution, from data and inputs and insights into actually execution, which brings us to another story, which I thought was interesting, even if I don't fully get my head around it yet. But we've in the past talked about Celonis as the 800-pound gorilla in the process mining category.
Yes.
And they just introduced or announced, I guess, I guess it's a partnership, a go-to-market partnership with a company called Emporix. I don't know if you know them. I'm not familiar with them. But what is interesting is they are the goal of this partnership is what they're calling end-to-end process automation by creating this orchestration engine through this partnership and linking in some of the RPA stuff. I'm scratching my head a little bit because from my quick look at Emporix, they are a B2B and B2C commerce platform, which that like either maybe I'm looking at the wrong company, I don't know, but it was a little bit confusing as to how that fit. But my big takeaway is that Celonis has long been the company that gave you data, right? Interrogated your environment and gave you data about your process. And the hard part is in order to do anything, or in order for that to be value, you have to do something with it. And so a couple of years ago, they started going down the road of, I think they're calling it execution management, I think. Um, and it's like, it never really took off. It never really went anywhere. And so I see this as sort of a sign that hasn't really worked. And now they're trying the partnership route to activate their data. And so this is, as I'm understanding it, a partnership using their process intelligence data to then feed a tool that actually will do orchestration and maybe specifically around commerce. Maybe that's the hook. I don't know. So I don't know what you know about this or what your read on it was.
Yeah. So what I saw here was basically this connection of Celonis, which obviously we know from the process mining perspective, and task specific automation. And then on the other side, the Emporix orchestration engine, which is supposed to tie these tasks together to create more holistic processes and to basically tie all the tasks together into a process, and then to be able to automate that end to end. I can see, and I understand the interest in that kind of vision because we've been talking about the automated enterprise for years now, and the promise of RPA and everything else in enabling us to get there. But I always am concerned about how automation is documented from an end-to-end process if it's not also somewhat malleable, because the truth is every process changes over time. Technologies change quickly enough that you have to be able to take out one thing and put in another while maintaining similar data definitions and all of these things that go into defining a digital process from end to end. So that's where I'm a little shaky on the details right now, because I honestly don't see how this is being done in a way that would allow for that level of flexibility. And that's my concern, because every large enterprise has either been stuck in an SAP or Oracle ERP deployment that was enterprise wide or at least business unit wide, which stuck them with a bunch of ways of doing business that were fairly rigid and led to a lot of technical debt. And I wonder if this is another level of technical debt that we're going to end up putting into our processes if we try to do automated end-to-end process without a deep level of flexibility and granular governance that we can switch on and off, or that can be switched on and off on a contextual basis.
I mean, one of the things that Celonis is talking, and this article is really fascinating because there's not a single thing that, at least that I saw from the Emporix side, it's like really all Celonis, which I thought was fascinating. But in either case, one of the things that Celonis is talking about is this idea of the autonomous enterprise that you can now turn this on and the tool, and I think they're talking a little bit aspirationally about this, but that it's going to self-drive its operations and services. And this idea of detecting events and anomalies and opportunities and adjust the processes in real time. And what I find fascinating about this, I mean, there's BMC was talking about the autonomous enterprise for a while. I think they still are.
Mm,
There's people that love to talk about the self-driving whatever, and some there's a company called Era on the more industrial side that they use this language, but when you get into the covers, they're pretty pragmatic about what that actually means and about how they're using it. It's really about providing insights to human operators and decision makers to be able to act in real time. And I think that's the fabulous use case. I look at stuff like this and I get a little bit itchy, it's just because the reality is we look at things like automated trading systems, and while they can work really well, they can also go horribly wrong when you have anomalous activities that can throw them off. And that's in an incredibly finite process. It's one thing that we're doing,
yes. Hmm.
high stakes, but one thing. And when you talk about the average enterprise, the number of business processes are staggering, and the amount of variance is staggering. It's why process as a discipline, and why I think this is going to be so incredibly hard to really pull off. And what that what the real end state looks like. So I'm all for aspirational visions. I'm all for providing better insight. I'm a little bit iffy on this one, but I guess the proof will be in the pudding as to what actually comes out of it, if anything. But I do think it's just this kind of interesting. I think my big takeaway is that what it clearly speaks to something that I've been talking about for a while, that the name of the game right now is automation, automation, automation. It's not enough just to have data. You've got to be doing something with it. You got to be automating your workflows in any way, shape, or form. And it's hard to do. So this is an attempt to try to solve for that. I'm just not sure if it's an overreach.
Yeah, I just feel that anytime you talk about end-to-end process, you have to have management capability that is adjustable and avoids technical debt over time. So as the pieces that will inevitably change over the next 5 years do change, are you stuck with your legacy framework and your legacy automation? Or is there a way to use those new resources and new capabilities that are going to come into place? That's always my biggest concern. And I feel like that is one that is still in progress here for companies that want to adopt this for anything more than some specific and limited and well-defined processes.
Now, this is we're reading from a Diginomica article, so it's not like that we're not reading from their press release. But I will tell you, I think the big challenge I had with it from the article, which you presume is drawn from the press release,
Mhm.
is that it's just not really clear, and that was challenging because I feel like these shouldn't be that complex to describe unless it's hand waving or whatever. But